Au revoir la pêche, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, is French, which they speak in Monaco.
Goodbye fish? No?
That's to have the peach.
Oh, God, my French is terrible. Goodbye
Well,
fish.
I'm sure I'm pronouncing it perfectly. Yeah. To have the peach means to be in high spirits.
It's poisson, isn't it? Yeah. What'd you say? Avoir? Au revoir or avoir? Avoir.
Avoir.
Yeah. Sorry,
avoir.
That is to have.
La pêche.
Avoir et être.
Yeah.
Sacre bleu.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but a win and a near win back to back is maybe just enough to give me faith that this season might turn out to be interesting after all. Drew Scanlon joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
Christian Horner sure wants you to think that. He was been on the news this week saying that. And also Toto Wolff said it as well. That's how desperate we are right now. We're looking at a mirage. We're in the desert. We're starving. We're thirsty. And in the distance we see this sort of this blurry line, and it kind of looks like a, is that papaya? Is that what that is? Is that Oscar Piastri in fourth? Actually, maybe there's something to this. Who knows? We live in hope.
As the mirage gets closer, it resolves into Rob Zachney. How are you, Rob?
I am ready to drink at this mirage like that. I'm telling you, that's an oasis right there. We can just pull that podcast in there and just drink deeply of what's going to be a competitive, final 2/3 of this championship.
If you are new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode, which assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you would like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 257. Also, this show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release an ad-free version of the podcast. Actually, that's every week. With bonus podcasts and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What do we have going on this month, Danny?
We are going to be recording, I believe, tomorrow at time of recording, The Stuntman. We've been talking about it for a while. We got all the past 2 months done at the start of the month, so it feels like it's been a hot minute since we did a patron pod, but we'll have it up in the next week or so here on patreon.com/shiftf1. Massive thanks.
I did just finish watching it, and there is a car in it. And the car
I hope
does
there's a car in it. That's the prerequisite to it being a patron exclusive podcast.
Exactly. And the plot sort of hinges on the car. So
okay. Is it a sentient car that falls in love?
We'll just have to see.
Okay. Find out now. The only way you can find out is by joining our Patreon. Like these fantastic people, our title sponsors, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Agave ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SCS, at Team Blackjack, Michael May, at Team Blackjack, very Monaco themed as well.
Indeed.
Let's see if there's anyone else who's Monaco themed. Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, what is wrong with my voice? At Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, telemetrydeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Althani, Jason Chadwick. You put your name too long. I'm just going to say Jason Chadwick. Sort it out, mate. That's like 500 words. Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us Podcast, Bunny Fiend, Snigs, Alex Couchet, Max Voltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, William Rumpf, Irvine Clinical Research. That's pretty Monaco, Irvine Clinical Research. I think they have a campus there. Lachlan the Madden Man, a Samurai Love Story, and of course Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much as we enter. Bunny Fiend just went back vanilla. Bunny Fiend sometimes has been fiending up so hard. They've been fiending hard.
No, I feel like Bunny Fiend is like, did they get Jokerfied? Where it's like after a long time of, bunny crimes and such, now we've entered our Fiend era.
That's a good point. Maybe we are in the Fiend era. It's amazing. You got people like Bunny Fiend who like to keep us guessing, and then you've got those staples. You got that. It's the Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Althani. They're the three of them have just been together since. They're like the Beatles, man. When it comes to our beautiful livery, and the name is splashed all over it.
Well, let's run down these names, shall we? The grid for. What was the race? The Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
San Marino.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to, so let's jump right into it. Max Verstappen on pole, which is a little surprising because he hadn't looked too hot in practice.
Yeah.
But he did, on his pole lap, get a huge tow from, I believe it was Hülkenberg at the beginning of the lap to put himself on pole. Lando Norris right behind. However, Oscar Piastri qualified second, 700ths off of Verstappen's time.
Yeah, super close.
But was penalized 3 places for impeding Kevin Magnussen. So he'll start 5th.
If Kevin Magnussen's not getting penalties, he's giving them. Stay away from Kevin Magnussen, folks.
Charles Leclerc will line up 3rd, Carlos Sainz in 4th, Oscar Piastri 5th, George Russell 6th, Yuki Tsunoda 7th, Lewis Hamilton in 8th, Daniel Ricciardo getting into Q3. He'll start 9th. And then Nico Hülkenberg never raced at Imola.
Isn't that so crazy?
Yeah.
That's like bizarre. That's like a pub quiz question. If he had not done it this weekend, I had to, and also threw away the contract he signed last week. That was, I could not believe it. I was like, that is, it is one of these tracks that sort of, I think it was the pandemic, right? It was when we came back here, but it was just such a staple, and you forget when he started that he's not that old. You know, he's not like Alonso. Yeah, really crazy. Just thread the needle of avoiding Imola this whole time.
Sergio Perez threaded the needle of not getting into Q3 for the first time this year.
Woof.
Knocked out by Ricciardo, in fact. He'll start 11th ahead of Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly in 15th, Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen. Logan Sargent, no time set. I think his time was deleted for track limits in Q1. And then Fernando Alonso will start from the pit lane. He crashed in free practice 3, went off in the gravel in Q1, and it's probably one of these things that led to the changes under parc fermé conditions that necessitated a pit lane start. So,
yeah, there was a lot of them having trouble over the course of practice and qualifying with just like, I don't know, Aqua Minerale really throws them out away. And in fairness to the Red Bulls, like Max was really wiggly on P1, but they seemed to figure it out and get him at least a little bit happier. But he seemed to have a lot of trouble with the back of the car and grip.
So the start, no big change at the start. Hamilton does jump Tsunoda into 7th place. Hülkenberg gets by both RBs into 8th place. And that's kind of it through the start.
Where did Alonso start again?
From the pit lane.
Yeah, he did, because he was so far back at the start. I don't know if you guys are running into this trouble, but for the longest, during this race especially, the Mercedes and the Astons I was getting, at a glance, I have trouble picking out which is which for a while didn't matter because they weren't close to each other, but especially in this one where Lance Stroll had such a strong fight, I was having that. I'm not sure if it's been a while since I've had the problem of 2 F1 cars looking like each other, which I feel like was a thing in the past for a long time, but I haven't had now. Is that just me though? Am I just an idiot?
I mean, they've looked like that for a while.
I guess. It's
What's
me.
Your problem?
Okay. Fair. Okay. Sure. It's me. Okay. It's me.
What was the deal? Why is Crofty sick?
No,
You know?
he's just taking time off.
Okay.
So he came to this year. He's going to miss a number of races, and they sort of like agreed upon ahead of time why they're missing, like what his dates are. And his reasoning given at the start of the season was pretty understandable. Apparently, he has not missed like hardly any races, maybe none in like years and years. The season's really long, and he just got married, and so he's like would like to have a little like just a couple fewer travel weekends a year. And he also gave an interesting statement, which is like he has not listened to a race broadcast. He has not watched a race through the lens of race broadcast in ages. So he was going to take it as an opportunity to sort of see what he could get out of watching it as a spectator through the broadcast, and have that inform his work moving forward.
I was watching on the regular one this time around because Brundle wasn't there as well, right? I heard.
It was Kroon Chandok.
It was Chandok. And who else? Alex Jakes? No,
No,
he's on.
No, it's just 2 for the Sky feed.
Some other guy.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
He was fine. I felt like Karun, I don't think it was an easy race to step into. For Imola is not the most.
Oh, the play-by-play was Harry someone.
Harry Styles.
It was Harry Styles, yeah.
Okay.
He's not the guy who did it before Crofty, right? This is before my time. Who did it before? Who's the play-by-play before? This is
Gosh.
great radio.
Wait,
This
you
is-
talking about Murray Walker?
No,
play
there
by
was
play.
There was
So
an
the-
in-between guy.
Yeah, but I mean, you mean is that? Oh, whatever. Is that play by play number 1 or number 2?
Not.
Commentator.
It was Brundle and
caller.
somebody else.
Okay. Oh, of course. Yes, I know here. Yes, I'm blanking because I haven't thought about this person in forever. But yes, there was somebody. You're right.
I only know his
all the
voice.
Channel 4 years. There was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot the guy's name.
I only know his voice from YouTube videos.
This does seem like an odd one to take off, though. It's not particularly far, and it's from England, and it's a double header. Like, why didn't you just take off like China or something? You know what I mean? Like, if you wanted a weekend off, was it just too cold? Is the summer coming in? Maybe. You know? I don't know. Whatever. Or Miami. Take off Miami. I know Miami's probably fun to go to. Maybe he just hates Italian people. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
Lap 9, Alex Albon, slow on track, says he doesn't think a wheel is on properly. So he comes back to the pits for a new set, but eventually retires. The stewards hand him a 10-second penalty for an unsafe release. But yeah.
He served that before retiring, so he wouldn't carry it forward.
He did.
Yeah.
I will say I was really impressed.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Like speaking to, again, F1 drivers picking stuff up later. In the cool down room, one driver noticed immediately when they showed that replay, without any context for it, saw him pulling out of the pit box and was like, "Oh no!" And
Really?
if you looked really closely, you'd see that it was cross-threaded and the wheel was oscillating weirdly on its axis. But like, I only noticed that because I knew to look for it because you knew the stop had been botched. But yeah, again, like these drivers like pick those details up immediately. That is a 5-alarm fire if the wheel's moving like that.
There was like somebody put a hex on the wheel guns this weekend because in F2, did you see the thing that happened in the pit lane in F2?
No.
There was one driver who came in who was leading. Who was it? Was it I forget who it was, but they came in and the rear right wasn't on properly. Everyone put their hands up. They were still so in F2 as well. This year they have the whole thing. They only have like a 5-person pit crew, so each wheel crew member has to take off the wheel and put the wheel on. So they're a bit slower this year as well as a result. But they were putting on the rear right, and they were still clearly doing it. And the light got turned on. That driver pulled out. The wheel came off. It's like a nightmare wheel to be the one that's going to come off because it's going to get spun up, and then the minute you turn, it's going to fly at the pit box in front of you. So it rolls off, spins, gets shot up in the air, bounces off, but thankfully doesn't hurt the rear left wheel gunner of the car in front, who then pulls out, and that wheel comes off.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. Both cars drove out. And I'm not sure if the first wheel coming off and going near that wheel gunner had any effect, but it was just crazy to watch that happen. You're like, oh my God, there's a wheel. And then you suddenly see the other wheel come off. And it's like, what? What's going on? Which, of course, is like basically a terminal problem for any driver because you can't drive the whole way back around with 3 wheels. I think you're not allowed to leave. If it happens before you leave the pit lane, I'm pretty sure you have to drive. You have to pull in. I don't think you.
Yeah, they don't. They take that real. I think the thing they're most concerned about is the launching of the wheel. The minute they realize that thing's not properly attached, it's like just stop. Don't
and we've
pull
seen
anymore.
camera people and pit crew members. Like it's been a decade probably since it's happened, but there's been a couple of you can watch some pretty gnarly replays on YouTube if you want to see somebody get hit by I don't know how heavy those things are, but they're heavy and they fly through the air. They can definitely kill you. But yeah, there was one camera guy a couple of years ago who thankfully was okay, but had a really significant smack off one of those things. That's why they have them tethered to the cars so they don't fly into the spectators as well, or a driver.
Harry Benjamin.
Benjamin
was the commentator. He does. He's the voice of F1 on BBC Radio.
Okay.
Yes.
Benjamin Harry.
Oh, excuse me. All right, back to the race. Lap 13, Tsunoda pits from 9th place, undercutting Hülkenberg, something that will be very important later in their races, at least. Lap 17, Perez trying to make up positions from that 11th place, but makes his life harder by taking a trip through the gravel after a lockup. It's often you see drivers lock up and do stuff like this in practice a lot because they're trying to find the point.
The limit,
The limit, yeah. But kind of a lot in this race. Perez, Hamilton takes a trip through the gravel on lap 26 at Acqua Minerale, which means mineral water.
It's where they sell it. They have a little stand there. You can buy some Acqua Minerale. That's one of the ways in which this track really feels like a fun retro track to me, is that there's loads of gravel and they tend to go.
They added more.
It. Oh, you're right. They did.
Yeah, for this year.
Paul Ricard, are you watching?
Yeah. Lap 23, pits get going for the front runners, starting with Norris, who's in second, then Piastri, who is racing Sainz for fourth. Sainz, though, elects to go long, and around this time we notice that Verstappen has been shown the black and white flag for track limits, meaning that he'll get penalized if he does go off track again.
Quite early for that to happen as
Yeah.
well. And also for a front runner, not like who's not under immediate pressure. Like there's like a 5-second gap between him and Norris at this stage, I think. So kind of worrying, because you're like that once you get that flag, that's you're out of, 2 strikes now at this stage. You're sort of down to it. So yeah, kind of worrying. I was very surprised to see that. And also by this stage, you're looking at, the question for the past couple of days has been, is McLaren a genuine, competitor against the Red Bulls at the moment? But just they really are against the Ferraris. And if you went back to the start of the season, that was not the case. So immediately in this race, both not just on qualifying pace, but also on race pace, you're seeing like Piastri ahead of Sainz on merit. Like it's really, it's interesting. It like if we'll have to see in Monaco, but like already halfway through the race, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like this is going to come down to, like you said at the end of last week, Imola is a strategy race, but this could be a fun strategy race, not just like a procession strategy race.
Yeah. Let's see. So meanwhile, probably the overtake of the race for me is on lap 25 when Tsunoda gets by Sargent, who was running long on his hard tires at, I believe, turns 2 and 3, followed quickly by Hülkenberg at turns 5 and 6. Hülkenberg chasing Tsunoda for the last of the points-paying positions after those pit stops. Lap 28, Sainz pits and comes out well behind Piastri, having lost a place by going those 4 laps longer. Also having run long, but newly pitted, is Perez, now on medium tires, and in quick succession clears Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, and Tsunoda, ending up in 8th place by lap 42. Stroll is following behind him. A few laps later, gets into 9th. Leclerc is another one.
And have we established by this stage that Hülkenberg is going for a one-stopper? I think maybe that's something we're noticing at this stage. I forget, because he started on the hards, I think.
Hülkenberg?
Yeah, am I crazy?
He did not. He started on mediums.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, he changed on lap 13 and then was going the whole rest of the way.
Okay.
Tsunoda changed 1 lap before that and was going a full 50 laps on his hard tires. So they're on the same strategy. So lap 47, Leclerc also trips up, goes over the chicane, but keeps 3rd place. And then lap 51, Russell and his engineer have a little back and forth about doing a pit stop. So he is running just ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 6th place. And Russell doesn't want to lose position to Hamilton, but the team are concerned about his tires lasting to the end of the race, so they do pit him anyway. He goes on to set the fastest lap and get 1 more point. Same time, Verstappen reports that his tires are pretty smoked, and while it looks like Norris is not going to be able to do anything about it, considering he's almost 5 seconds behind, suddenly this race gets interesting, and on lap 53, he really turns it on and goes after Verstappen, gaining about a half second per lap, and also complicating things is Verstappen's black and white flag for track limits.
Yes.
Which would hand the race to Norris if he's within those 5 seconds that he would get for that penalty.
Some tasty radio chatter between Verstappen and GP here as well, his engineer. Some good stuff. It'll be on this year's mixtape of radio chat between Verstappen and GP.
Norris really pushing, and it is apparent how hard he's pushing from his onboard because he gets pretty squirrely.
Oh my God.
his laps, or his tires rather, a few laps older than Verstappen's. There was a couple moments where the commentators were like, "Whoa, okay."
Like 2 turns in a row, the back was swimming out. It reminded me of, like, you don't often get this at race pace, but it was like the Verstappen qualifying lap in Jeddah, where you can, even if you're not a driver, you can see that they're throwing the car around the turns as much as right on the limit. And Norris was doing it, but as much as he had that great pace at the start, he was chopping down that lead that Verstappen has. You could see the diminishing returns as he was getting closer and closer.
Well, up to a point, like, there's a point where I was like, this is just not going to happen. But then, like, the way he was able to drive in the very final laps, it was kind of surprising, where he'd like cut the lead down quite a bit, seemed kind of stuck there in like DRS range, and then not really close enough to do anything. And then that final surge, like, I was a little surprised how much was left in the tank.
Yeah, he does get to within DRS range on the last lap, but there's just not enough time. Maybe a lap or 2 more, and he would have had him. But or a rare mistake from Verstappen would have done him in. But it was not to be. Max Verstappen wins the race. Lando Norris in second. Charles Leclerc holds on for third, followed by Oscar Piastri fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth, Lewis Hamilton sixth, George Russell in seventh after that pit stop. Sergio Perez about 7 seconds behind Russell, who again had pitted. So that's kind of the divider line of this race. Lance Stroll in ninth, Yuki Tsunoda 10th, and just behind him, Nico Hulkenberg could not break the top 10. Kevin Magnussen 12th, Daniel Ricciardo 13th, Esteban Ocon is 14th, and in 15th we have Zhou Guanyu, followed by Pierre Gasly, Logan Sargent, Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, and the DNF of Alex Albon. And that was Imola, everyone.
Yeah. What do we make of the McLaren Red Bull thing? Is there anything about Imola in particular which is the reason why Verstappen was having such trouble with grip? Because that's the story of this race. The story of the race is not just that and them having maybe trouble getting the hards into a good range early on the stint, but it's also the black and white flag. Like, that plays a big part in this. And next week we're going to Monaco, and that's not a track where you can run into the gravel. So I'm wondering, like, is there something about Imola in particular that they were having trouble with, or is this I don't know. Like, it's definitely a case of McLaren having brought upgrades that have significantly brought them into the fray, but
I think, was it Rob? Maybe you had flagged an article here where they point out that Norris was only able to do this because he was really, really gentle on his tires as soon as he put them on the hards, because the tires are in F1 they're temperamental, and they can actually they know what you've done over their lifetime. So if you are, kind to them on the first stint, you can be rough on them in the latter half of the stint. So that's basically how Norris was able to,
really
do that, is he saved his tires.
It's like so far beyond being gentle on them in the past. Like, I think Hamilton talked about this a little bit, where just the modern tires are infuriatingly temperamental and have a narrow operating range. But yeah, if you really baby them early, they can pay you back with a lot of performance very late in a stint. But it really did, Norris had to cede a lot of momentum while he was doing that. One other thing that I just wanted to call out here was the decision to pit Russell and the weird vibe around that interaction at Mercedes. I don't know, just another one for the file of like the insecurity level being a little high with Russell. It seemed pretty clear that they were pitting him to get him out of Hamilton's way, because he was closing in fast on Russell. Perez wasn't closing in on Hamilton meaningfully, but he was still, like, both of them were closing on Russell. It sort of seems like they needed to get Russell out of the way for the strategy, and he was very like, well, Lewis can give me the place back at the end of the race. And it's like, no, that's not, We're not doing that. That's just not how this race is going to unfold. But I don't know. It's just a little bit of gone are the days of George being on the radio to Williams, whatever it takes to help Nicky. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And now it's like, well, that's my 6th place.
Yeah. RaceFans has a good transcript of both Mercedes drivers' radios over the course of this. I think it contextualizes it a little bit. Like Russell and his engineer are talking about the tires being pretty shot for a while. And so, interestingly, his engineer, Dudley is his name. He kind of leaves it up to Russell. He says, concerned getting these tires to the end, up to you. Russell says, I don't want to concede a position for no reason. And then Dudley says, stay out. And then, what is this? 1 lap later, box. So, I wonder if it's, it's a situation where, listen, we'll chat about it, but if I tell you to do something, you got to do it.
Yeah.
I can put that in the show notes for people who want to see it.
You can just get a close friend and print out 2 copies, and you can do it yourself over the dinner table. Yeah.
Dramatic reading. Yeah. All right, that is it for the race recap. We are going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the news. Driver market news, Rob. Hot off the press. What do we got?
Well, it's not the hottest news anymore. It dropped as is the want of these things. It dropped right after we recorded last week, or y'all recorded last week. But Alex Albon signed an extension with Williams, and details are a little bit fuzzy. What we do know is that it is for it extends through 2026 and beyond. But beyond may have asterisks because what they have, what Autosport sort of flagged in their write-up about this was whenever multi-year deal is like the terminology that they use when describing a contract, that means that there's wiggle room. Multi-year means like could be 2 years, could be 5. It just depends on how some other things work out. Like Hamilton had a multi-year deal with Mercedes until it turned into a 1-year deal with Mercedes and then an exit clause to go to Ferrari. But yeah, so Albon signed an extension with Williams last week. They did a cute little video on Williams' YouTube channel with him and James sitting down to talk about it. Fun little detail was that Albon and his partner were... when they got the news the extension was done, they were on their way to an aquarium to like have some sort of like swim with the stingrays encounter experience. Cool. And so he came back from that, he said, after kissing stingrays all day, to come and sign the contract paperwork. It was cute.
The life of an F1 driver.
Indeed, especially one that apparently there's not a charismatic animal in the world that Albon and his partner are not going to try and like meet firsthand. But the other thing that is sort of, the gloss put on this contract a little bit is it's a really pragmatic decision by Albon. Perez looking better in that Red Bull has kind of firmed up some of the, like, they're not going to move on from Perez to an Albon, right? Like maybe if they have a real like killer prospect to get in that seat, but Sergio's driving well enough now at Red Bull that it does not seem imminent that there's going to be a shakeup triggered by Perez being moved out of there.
And there's Sainz too.
Right, like Sainz is going to be the first choice ahead of Albon. So Albon's looking at this driver market where him now getting a seat that's appreciably better than the Williams is a pretty low probability shot at this point. So it made sense, since his stock is relatively high, especially of that team, to parlay that into a contract. With the, from his standpoint, there might be more opportunities in a few years if he can keep his performance up. Some slots at top teams probably will open up around 26, 27. So might as well just commit to Williams now and see how it goes. Though Williams, their car sucks this year, and it's, we get a lot of endearing and really interesting insight into all that stuff from Vowles, sort of the transparency approach that Williams is taking, but you need to see the turnaround, because no driver's stock ever improves by being in a bad car for years and years, right? You can only appear to be driving beyond it for so long before it's kind of time to move on. So I think that's kind of the risk with him, is that he's going to be stuck in a car that doesn't really give you many showcase moments, the way he had last year with the Williams having higher peaks.
I think there's a very interesting compare and contrast between him and Daniel Ricciardo at the moment, where Ricciardo obviously left Red Bull, and Albon had a very different exit from Red Bull, and he was one of those drivers where you're not, will we ever see him again, or is he now on his, he's on the other side of the sine wave, and we'll slowly see him peter out. And obviously he's found a sort of a decent home at Williams, being the number one driver, being pretty solid weekend to weekend, confident, seems to be driving well, and doing a good job, and in a position of authority there as a driver, which I think is really good. And I think the pragmatism of what he's doing against the sort of optimism maybe of Ricciardo, and not just how he's jumped from seat to seat, but what are Ricciardo's, what's his goal? You could argue he's taking up space at the team he's at as well. You know what I mean? They have a pretty big academy program, lots of drivers coming through. I think it's very optimistic. He did out-qualify Perez this weekend. It's just unfortunate for him that his teammate was 3 places ahead of him. He's not getting that seat. I think that's a very optimistic, goal for him at this stage. Albon's taking the route of, I'm going to secure my future in this sport. I'm going to get more years behind me. I am going to, there is a market we've seen again and again for the old head who is reliable, and maybe they don't win championships. I'm looking at Kevin Magnussen, right? Sorry, I'm looking at Nico Hülkenberg. I mean, you could argue someone like Magnussen.
Hülkenberg is the icon,
yeah, but also Magnussen's a driver who's maybe often been the second driver, but has still managed to at least been, consistent. But I mean Hülkenberg, of course. So I think it's smart. F1 careers can be long, and getting hours in the seat is really important. And Ricciardo, for all of his jumping around, he lost a whole year. You know what I mean? That's tough to get back from. So I think it's smart. I also think that Albon, in a way, to me, I don't know, I'm sure all these guys must be super driven, super driven, but I don't get the vibe from Albon that he's got that hunger. You know what I mean? That he's that guy, that he wants to be the best in the world. I don't see that from him, and so I think he's
hard
smart
to pigeonhole, because I think that quality you describe, I think, is one of the big things that held him back at Red Bull, which is we want to see a charismatic, ambitious, hungry young gun. And he's just a much more shy, retiring type who he may want it really, really badly. I just don't think he's the type that you would know if he wants it really, really badly. And F1 being what it is, people want to see that a little more clearly in the the performance of being an ambitious and hungry F1 driver, and that's just not Albon. Albon is a guy who he'll be the good soldier, and programs like Williams, high value in being a good soldier. Places maybe he wants to go, little less premium placed on that.
Yeah, especially when you got Logan Sargent making you look good.
Yeah, for now.
Danny, let's look ahead. What's the FIA thinking about, and Formula One for the future?
How far ahead do you want to look? Do you want to look a couple of years ahead? Do you want to look 10 years ahead? Let's do it all. Let's talk about all of it. How about that? So there's a couple of different news stories this week about possible future changes to the cars. We know there's a big engine swap happening, engine changes happening again after the next one, past 2030. But in the interim as well, there's been a news story about F1 putting in a tender for a lighter version of the Halo. So Autosport reported on this during the week. Basically, a tender has been put out. So a tender is like a open pitch to companies to basically develop something. For a new titanium alloy Halo with a mass that is greater than 6 kilograms. So I think you have a note here saying that they want 6 kg as opposed to the current spec, which is 7 kg. This new Halo, they're going to put it through the same strength tests, the amended ones that they did in the wake of Zhou Guanyu's crash at Silverstone. But they want to run it between 2026 and 2030. This line from the FIA's head of single seaters, Nicholas Tombazis, who says, "We aim to have a significantly lower weight limit, and we're looking to reduce the weight limit from 40 to 50 kilos in 2026. So this is basically one part of the much grander plan to try and get these big hulking cars to not be so bloody heavy. Part of that is the other news story, which is about them changing the engines. So Autosport also reported this with the beautiful, with one of those headlines that grabs you immediately if you've been a fan of F1 for a long time. F1 ready to consider different engines from 2030 and push for more noise. So then you're suddenly thinking back to the days of your V8s, your V10s, those super aggressive grumbling V12s. Take your pick. Obviously, in the wake of the turbo hybrid era, two things happened. One, the sound of the engine stopped, wasn't as loud, didn't have that shrill of the previous generations of cars going back, decades. The other thing is they got super heavy. They got to stick all these big batteries in them. Obviously, that's changed a lot over the years. Obviously, the recovery systems, energy recovery systems, all that sort of stuff. That stuff has gotten more efficient, but not really lighter. And the cars, for a number of different reasons. I mean, from the aero spec to the wheels, everything just seems to have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's been a problem for a hot minute. So that's another element of the car that they're looking to change. Pulling this one from Autosport in what could be a dramatic change of approach for F1 after what by then will have been more than 15 years of turbo hybrid engines. Domenicali has hinted that one option could be to abandon the current concept altogether. That possibility comes as part of a renewed effort to make F1 engines louder. He went on to suggest that if F1 switch to running fully sustainable fuels from 2026 proves successful, then abandoning hybrids in favor of a new direction could be something to think about. So there we go again. It's back, baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's
technically back. Carbon neutral by
carbon
2030.
Neutral. Exactly. Don't call my carbon neutrality into question. I've got the paperwork. So look, I feel like as somebody who's gone through in their life, the ozone layer getting fixed, and now we're, greenhouse gas emissions, and there was always this feeling that we were fixing the problems, and it has felt in more recent years with AI really using quite a lot of electricity to make shit.
Don't forget the water.
Nobody wants. The water. Yes, of course. The beautiful commodification of water, and now Domenicali and the F1 just saying, hey, you want those lead engines, motherfucker? You miss those lead engines, don't you? How about we all agree? To run these cars on ethanol or something? We'll just say we got it from a court.
Do you remember Home Improvement on ABC with Tim the Toolman Taylor and just we just miss being that guy? Aren't you tired of being like, I'm a motorsports fan, but I pretend to care about the earth? No, let's just put hell with it. Put W12s in these things. Let's just put the biggest the engines even Bentley had to discontinue. Let's just throw them in there. So the thing is, I actually do think I think we are headed toward a future, optimistically, where there's gonna be a lot of things that used to be powered by gas and used to be really energy and fossil fuel intensive that will just be done substantially reduced fashion across the board, and a lot of it will be swapped in cleaner. I do think in that utopian vision, like, what are things we should burn fossil fuels for? Powering race cars. I don't like. That's not. It's going to be a trivial. Like it brings.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Fun for a lot of people.
You.
It's a trivial source of emissions for their amount of time like running on track. But I don't think the time is ripe to be like, yeah, we're just we found this gasoline. Don't worry, it's good for planet Earth. It's carbon cycle 100% efficient. I think we're a little ways away from that, but actually no. I don't think the hybrid cars made it that bad. I don't think it's a noise thing. Like, I think this is a weird, like, the sound of F1 cars changed years and years ago, and the sport's gotten more popular since then. If they've got that big a problem with it, go talk to anyone who owns a Harley and ask them, how do you make that sound so fucking awful? And they'll give you some tips for how to make like F1 cars.
You just drill a hole in the exhaust or something.
Adrian Newey, we're entrusting you with the most difficult and important problem F1 has ever had. We need you to put a diffuser and an exhaust vent here that's just going to sound like the sky being ripped open. But the actual thing is, like, mostly I think it's the weight. It is the weight and the size of the cars that have made F1 a little less enjoyable. And I do think, like, probably the direction of, like, increasing the reliance on hybrid power, increasing the reliance on battery, maybe isn't a good direction. Like, you'll see potentially faster cars, but will they be more fun? I don't know. Like, reading reviews of the new like Mercedes AMG C63, which has always been like a V8 showcase, and now they got their like fastest 4-cylinder ever. Every description is like it's a technical marvel that nobody loves. They have no connection.
Oh, really?
With it. Yeah, it's more power on paper. It just delivers it in a profoundly weird way.
What are your guys' favorite? Do you have any favorites like engine? I mean, there's some stuff. There's no point in even talking about bringing back something like those grumbly old V12s. I'm not sure if you could, what that looks like in a modern F1 car. I mean, the pre-hybrid V8s were incredibly shrill and loud. Like they were, even right up until, what was it, 2013, I think, when the swap happened. I went to Silverstone and Abu Dhabi in that era, and could not understand how something could be so loud. I was just like, my brain was rattling. Like I had headphones on. I was like, that is insane. Like, yeah. So I had no experience with a lot of the other ones, except seeing them at like events and stuff, but not like 20 cars. I mean, it's different.
I think you're always gonna have an emotional bond with the F1 sound that you first fell in love with. The sport.
The Mario Kart problem.
Like for me, it's the V10. Right? It's like. That to me is the sound of F1 is those things revving to life, and the sound of those things at full song. It was like the start of every race. It was like we just unleashed bees. That was the sound of an F1 race.
Do you know what it sounds like as well? It reminds me of like when there's that scene in Dunkirk when the ship, the plane comes to the beach and they can hear it coming, and it's almost like a, what do you call one of those tones where it feels like it's repeating. It's like a harrowing noise when you hear it coming. It's like intimidating. Like that to me, that sense of, they can't see it through the clouds, and when you're at a race, you can hear it coming, you can't see it yet, and it sounds like almost scary. Shepherd tone, that's what it's called. That sound where it's a sound a sound that feels like it's always going down, but it's like sort of looping back. Yeah, it's like so cool.
Yeah, whenever I see clips of the old cars, I do think like, oh man, what must it have been like to watch the sport back then, or much less be at the track.
It's probably easier to have a conversation now.
Underrated thing. All the drivers in that era were deaf as posts.
Okay.
Like it was like the hearing loss that drivers of that generation suffered was pretty substantial over the course of a career. I think you probably couldn't quite go back to that, but V8.
It's funny because it's such a weird thing to be concerned about. Like I can't help thinking that the volume level, the decibel level, is just it's not the level, it's the tone, it's the note,
the sound, yeah.
And I think because it suggests what's going on underneath it. So if you just if you just turn the dial up on these, our current cars, it's not going to have the same effect.
Yeah, like especially back in like the 90s when you had people running different engines that you could tell which was which. You could tell who was coming based on the sound of them.
Well, and I think this is the other thing is, I haven't been in F1 race in years. You guys can speak to this more recently than I have, but I can just say from the standpoint of like watching TV, a lot of it is just they mic the track really poorly. The sheer number of tracks where there is not a really good sense of like presence or immediacy to the sound effects. Like the cars feel too distant, the crowd noise is too muted, like everything is too mixed down, and then there's just too much Crofty in the mix. But like just across the board, there's this sense of F1 races for the most part kind of sound underwhelming. But I thought the Chinese Grand Prix was well mic'd up. That track would like had some well placed mics this year, and those things sound awesome. Like if you can showcase what these things sound like and capture sort of the nuances of the sound, they're plenty impressive. So I think some of this is just. Yeah, gone are the days where you just point a shotgun mic at the track from 200 yards off and get like an impressive noise from it. But the challenge there would be to sort of have a better production. Oh, that does remind me. Just the last point about Imola. Was this the worst edited F1 race in ages?
Or directed, you mean?
Yeah,
live. Yeah. It wasn't great.
It just felt like they could not capture anything happening on the track. Like it was. There's been
a couple of these. You know, I feel like we were complaining about that. For China, was there a thing that they didn't catch? There was this.
Might have been, but this time it just felt like maybe the control truck had burned down or something.
Yeah,
or like
Karun was like narrating a close and overtake that was just not on screen for like 30 seconds. I forget which one it was.
And said on the air, wish you could see it, but we're watching something else right now, which I feel is as close as you can get to being on-air talent, to just like chewing out your producer on air.
And it's been directed from their base near Silverstone, right? Like isn't it all filmed
it's F1,
there?
so it's not.
Yeah. No. I don't mean Sky. I mean F1. But don't they have their thing is in England somewhere?
I think that's right.
All the feeds come back. They have like special low latency lines rented that like shoot all this stuff back, and then they direct it all from there. I'm pretty sure. It's not like it's a different. Direct. It's not like the Champions League.
It was just weird. There were a bunch of glitches this week where it was like at the start of Q1, we did not see a single trackside camera for like 2 or 3 minutes of the qualifying session. We just like had shots from the pit lane and then in cars. Nothing of
maybe a lot of flooding last year. You know, they just a lot of HDMI cables.
All FOM's broadcasting stuff got washed away. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here. Throwing back to a story that we had done, I think last week, about the spray guards that F1 was trialing. Bernie Eccleston got his wish. They sprinklered a track. They ran some cars on it to see if guards over the wheels would actually tamp down on the spray and thus improve visibility. Oliver Behrman, who was following Arthur Leclerc in these tests, says, back to the drawing board. We did a few different configurations. We only wet the straights just to see if you could follow. We did 4 or 5 runs just trying different levels of openness. Because he's talking about the actual covers of the tires. Because if it's fully closed, it's also quite tough for the temperature of the tires. I think the issue is that these cars make so much downforce from the floor, the air is energized from there, and of course, the spray follows the air. The visibility was still pretty tough out there. It was slightly better for sure. The work has gone into something, but it's not fixed.
There you go.
All right.
Back to the you mentioned Bernie Ecclestone. I saw some news during the week. Is he getting divorced?
Oh my God, really?
I think he might be.
No, I
Bloomberg here. F1 mogul's ex-wife. Oh no, maybe this is a previous divorce.
It's
F1
tough to keep
mogul's
track.
ex-wife builds family office to manage divorce riches. I mean, that's just pragmatic. Like, if you're gonna inherit hundreds of millions of dollars, then you probably should have some sort of office to do it. Slavika Malik. That sounds like they're trying to get me to say the word Slavic. I don't know which wife she is. Further research required. Sorry. Okay. I'll get back on Bernie watch. He is still alive.
Okay.
93.
Is Bernie Ecclestone alive.com.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm
like the old SNL bit, Generalissimo Francisco Franco is still dead.
Next item here, another quick hit. Verstappen. So it wasn't enough, everyone, that Verstappen got pole position and then won the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. He also was racing this weekend in a virtual race.
Cyberspace.
In cyberspace, the 24 hours of the Nürburgring in iRacing.
Ermagerd.
You may note that I said the 24 hours. So, yeah.
I had actually not noticed that. So thank you for saying. When did he do this?
So Autosport says, he clarifies, after taking pole in Italy on Saturday, Verstappen took on a 3-hour stint on his sim in the evening and tacked on another 2 hours Sunday morning to help his BMW GT3 entry win the event. So it's a tag team, just like other 24 hours. Yeah. The guy's a machine.
That's wild.
Oh, boy.
That's wild. That is wild.
This
on
is
race
me
day,
reckoning with the possibility, like, this guy might suck in some really important ways, but he might be extremely cool. I don't know. More research required.
That's a flex. There's no two ways. That is... honestly, the Saturday night one, I was like, yeah, sure, he's getting a little bit of practice in. The fact that he woke up the next morning, had his ham and eggs, and then did it again.
This is the most before. What can be more legendary than showing up for the clan, showing up for the raid, before you're going into the high stakes, actual high performance job you do?
I'm not missing it. We're doing Dead Mines. You probably wouldn't do it for Dead Mines, but we're hitting the Nixia before my graduation. Let's go. You know what I mean? Can you also just for a second? Now there's it's like peeling back the layers of awesomeness. Does that mean he brought his sim rig to San Marino?
He brings it everywhere. So we didn't cover it, but Helmut Marko at one point was like, Max is so crazy about sim racing that he actually has a private jet kitted out with a sim rig. And Max, weeks later, was like, okay, Helmut's very old. And that's not true. I think he's a little confused about how this works, but I do bring the sim rig with me a lot of places.
That's very funny. Good stuff. Yeah, fair play. He's all right. Baller move.
Speaking of video games, Danny.
Speaking of video games, so sometimes the worlds of Formula 1 and video games that all three of us dip both of our toes into. Arguably, both of our feet are mostly in the video game world, and we dip our fingers into the pie of F1. We put them in and out every week.
Where's my nose in this?
Smelling the delicious pie juice of F1 that you've got all over your fingers. I'm just going to read out a press release I got from the wonderful people at whoever is handling the Formula 1 video games PR. It says tomorrow. So this is not tomorrow. This is probably 2 days ago or maybe the day you're listening to this, who knows. EA Sports is kicking off one of the most anticipated race weekends with The 10 Racers, a star-studded virtual race on F1 registered 24 ahead of the video game's official launch on May 31st, 2024 across PlayStation registered 5, Xbox Series XS, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC via EA app, Epic Game Store, and Steam. Let's see how many of these people you recognize. Competing on the circuit de Monaco, in Monte Carlo, Scuderia Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and Williams Racing's Alex Albon.
I know him.
Will race against celebrity F1 fans, including global football superstars Diego Jota.
No.
Who's he play for? Anyone?
The Chargers.
Close, Liverpool. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Nope.
French guy. Used to play for Arsenal.
Okay.
And content creators...
I know this one. Will N.E.
Who's Will N.E.? Is he a Dutch guy?
I don't know. I only have heard he must be a sim guy.
He must be a Dutch sim guy. That's what I'm going to go with. When I see NE, I'm like, it's a Dutch person. Chesnoid. Maxime X MXM. Liam Kalevi. Avengers F1 consumer.
I think that's average.
Oh, sorry.
F1 consumer.
Average. Sorry. I just can't read today. I'm sorry. I never learned. I'm so sorry. Average F1's consumer, which is a very confusing handle to have. And El Ray Geary. The stream will air on Wednesday, May 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the Formula One YouTube channel. So presumably, if you go to the F1 YouTube channel and hit the live stream tab, you should be able to watch this. Who will win? Alex Albon, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Chesnoid. What do you think?
I think it's Alex. I'm giving it to Alex.
I think so. Take that, Charlotte Claire. Alex is more of a sim guy, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Just recall him yelling George a lot at George Russell during COVID.
And they're playing Helldivers last week. Yeah. New F1 game's out on May 31st. We'll see if it's any good.
Are they
This is
going
the
to bring
second
back
year that
Breaking
EA own
Point?
it, I think. Or what?
Are they going to bring back the story mode, Breaking Point? The saga
yeah.
of...
Was that in last year?
That
forget.
was. They brought back 3-year hiatus.
Okay.
It's surprisingly good.
Breaking Point.
It's their narrative
Good name.
thing where it's you follow, two likable drivers through the season. The first year was like kind of a one driver at the dawn of his career, one kind of old, like basically your Nico Hulkenberg is the dude, right? Like sort of embittered F1 driver who like it never quite came together, and the young gun. And then this year is like the young gun's working with the villain now at an expansion team effectively. Like it all just kind of works. It's fun. It's good times.
F1 lends itself to that type of like nonsense.
Much more so, I think, than like when
Soccer
Madden was
one.
trying to do story mode.
Oh yeah.
Football just doesn't convincingly lend itself to those kinds of narratives.
That's why you need to play Blitz the League 2, because that has the best story mode ever. Because you go to prison and then have to play like prison ball. It's the best game ever. It's absolutely
That sounds
fantastic.
awesome, and I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet not at all problematic.
It's not at all. Definitely not. The main character is definitely not an African American guy, and it's and then you can look. It's hard to focus on that when every time somebody tackles you in the groin, the game zooms into the body of the player and watches their testicles explode. I'm going to be honest. It's made in the same city as the Mortal Kombat people, so
Hell yeah.
that's what's in the water in Chicago.
Well, speaking of the water, Danny,
Yes.
take us to the azure shores of Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo, this might be the track that has had the most cars end up in the water. Probably. It probably is the only one that's had the cars end up in the water. Off we go to the beautiful street circuit of Monaco and Monte Carlo, Principality in the south of France. I think we said it was the second smallest country in the world, I believe, after the Vatican City. It's full of rich people. It's got casinos. It's got a swimming pool in it that they had to change the track to get around it. We'll talk about that in a second. This track has been around. I mean, they've been racing on it ever since Anthony Nogue, the cigarette, what do you call him, czar, decided to form a club and get them all to drive around the streets of the city back in 1929. It was part of the inaugural F1 season in 1950. Had a couple of years off there, and then it's been in F1 every year since 1955. It's a 78-lap race. It's a short lap, 3.337 kilometers or 2.07 miles. Just to give you an idea of that, Lewis Hamilton currently holds the lap record at 1 minute 12 seconds, 0.909. That was in 2021.
Wow.
So yeah, it's over quick. It's a short one. They're at full throttle for about 60% of the lap here. Super max downforce track as well. They are operating, I think there's something like, is it 48 gear changes they had at the here? Some pretty fast parts of this track. There's one DRS straight just on the start finish straight, but it's super short, and you honestly don't get many people throwing it down into turn one anyway. Kind of used to, but it's less of a thing now. What to say about this? I guess over the years it's changed a decent amount. It's kind of been the way it's been largely for about, I don't know, 30 years or so. They did some nips and tucks to it a couple of years back. They sort of changed to where a couple of little walls were and stuff like that. The Nouvelle Chicane got slightly changed as well, I believe, maybe 12 years ago. The biggest changes that happened to it over the past sort of 50 years or so were the swimming pool turns, which are hilarious because imagine that it was straight there before and then put a swimming pool there, and you literally see the corners where they had to drive around the swimming pool that the hotel put in. That's in Sector 3. And then the biggest change was on the harbour, which is after a tunnel in Sector 2. They drive through this like James Bond-esque tunnel out into the Monaco sunshine, and you can see the harbour and everything. That used to be... The turn that's there currently did not exist before. That's why it's called Nouvelle Chicane. There was an actual legit chicane further down, so they were going at it pretty fast, but it was pretty dangerous, and in 86 it sort of wasn't in line with the safety regulations they had anymore, so they got rid of it. But the current format we've largely been using for a long time. There is also a separate format which is about half this length. Formula E raced on that for a number of years as well.
It's real good.
They might still do. It's good, yeah. They just kind of chop Sector 1 in half and get you back onto the harbour. It's fun. They almost like immediately turn off when they do turn 1. They just kind of, the first time you see it, you're like, whoa, where are you going? You're supposed to go up the hill. No? This way? Okay. Yeah, so it's a very fun one. Overtaking here, turn 10 is a big one when you're coming down out of the tunnel into that Nouvelle Chicane, throwing it up the inside, because it's a pretty hard braking spot after it's not straight, but one of the more straight parts of this track. Then there are some like Yuki Tsunoda places to overtake. I feel like he's gotten really good at like overtaking him. It's weird
finding
spots.
Weird spots. Yeah.
Turn 18. I think Alonso tried this a couple of times over the past couple of years. Basically the penultimate corner, the right-hander before you have the pit lane entry.
Magnussen also. I feel like
right.
We've seen him a lot in that corner.
Turn 1's another one you don't see very often. Turn 6, which is in the hairpin at the Grand Hotel. There's a big hairpin there with a crazy camera angle looking basically straight down at it. It's a real jerk move there. It's kind of like cutting somebody off on the highway. You can just kind of throw yourself up the inside and force them to take a worse angle around the chicane. So that happens early in the race. You might see that in the first couple of laps, somebody sort of throwing their elbows out there and trying to get it done. And then aside from that, it's just got a lot of, I don't know, it's a track that has visually a lot going for it. The pomp, the circumstance, the history, the wealth for sure here. The trophies are handed out by the Prince and Princess of Monaco. It's got all that going on. It tends to get safety cars because when cars crash here, there's nowhere for them to go. They've got a fantastic group of recovery crew there who are able to use these cranes to get them out of the most ridiculous places. And they kind of know where they're going to crash here a little bit. A couple of escape roads as well, some of which, like the entry into turn 5, which people have crashed into the exit road, which is quite a handy way of doing it. So it's always a funny one. It's always been the one people are like, it's a bit of a procession. Qualification here is key. The cars have only gotten wider and longer, so that also makes it easier to establish dominance. But we've also seen Ricciardo and Leclerc and other drivers fall foul of bad pit stops, which have cost them races, be them badly executed ones, badly timed ones. In the case of Charles Leclerc, also your car dying before the race starts when you're in pole is probably a particularly sore spot. He still hasn't won here. I'm pretty sure he's born there. A lot of the drivers are as well. A lot of drivers live here as well because it's a tax haven. So, and also because it's nice and rich people are there and it's got a swimming pool, and that's Monaco.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, which I'm kind of surprised to say because, like you said, Danny, often it is a procession. I just like seeing it. I just like looking at it. Yep. I like seeing cars driving around.
It's like a weird uncle coming to visit. You know what I mean? It's like I don't. Am I excited? Maybe. I've known them for a long time. It's great to see them.
Like a city that's in its first year of a divorce. Like, just every time feels like, hey, check out my new place, and it's Monaco. And that's the whole vibe. I got boats. I got a cool pad by the harbor.
My car,
can you believe
my
there's
bed
a
is a race
casino
car.
right down the street?
And it's I've heard, I've never been there before, but I've heard it's a very fun place to visit if you're an F1 driver, because while the roads are the roads that people drive on, it's not. They're not you might be on the wrong side of the road or a weird part of the road or whatever. But like a lot of the rumble strips are still there. You can drive on a lot of the track. People do. You can especially the places like the hairpin. You know what I mean? The hairpin just kind of looks like that a bit.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. You can watch. There's great YouTube videos you can watch of people doing like quote unquote laps of Monaco during the rest of the year, and it's pretty cool to see it.
Also pretty cool to see rain at Monaco.
But are we going to see any rain at Monaco?
Well, qualifying time precipitation is currently sitting at 20%.
Okay.
That's preceded by 50% a few hours prior to that. So
50.
Yeah.
Oh, so wet track of Monaco is also
Yeah.
legit. Yeah.
Maybe.
Huh.
So that's Saturday. Could be a little wet. High humidity, 74%, low wind, and cool temps, 67 looks like. So maybe not that cold. Qualifying time, or 19 Celsius. Climbs to 22 Celsius or 71 degrees at race time. Precipitation 8% on race day. Humidity has backed off a little bit, 69%, and the wind also fairly low at 9 miles an hour or 14 kilometers an hour. But heading into the Monaco weekend, driver standings look like this. Max Verstappen is on top with 161 points. Charles Leclerc is in second with 113. Sergio Perez is in third with 107. And then Lando Norris in fourth with 101. Carlos Sainz has 93 points. He's in fifth place. And then a big gap down to Oscar Piastri in sixth with 53. George Russell has 44. Lewis Hamilton has 35. Fernando Alonso has 33. And Yuki Tsunoda is in 10th with 15 points. Ooh. Then we've got Stroll with 11. Behrman with 6, along with Hulkenberg. Daniel Ricciardo with 5. Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen are in 15th and 16th place with 1 point apiece. And then Alex Albon, Zhou Guanyu, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, and Logan Sargent all have 0 points. In the constructor standings, Red Bull Racing is on top with 268 to Ferrari's 212. McLaren is in third with 154 points. Mercedes is a good bit back in fourth place with 79. Aston Martin is in fifth with 44. RB is in sixth with 20. Then another big gap down to Gene Haas and team in seventh place with 7 points. Alpine has 1, and then Williams and Sauber both have 0. If you would like to join the standings yourself, you can do so in our official Shift+F1 podcast Fantasy League.
Fantasy.
Yes. Put on your robe and wizard hat.
Is that a Blood Ninja reference?
And join these fine folks. The podium for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix in third. Stay alive till 25.
Yeah, amen, brother.
My favorite. Oh my god, I've totally killed this joke. Dave, who's the Van Halen guy? Sammy Hagar.
Sammy Hagar.
Song. Yep. Favorite Sammy Hagar
I was
song.
going to say
Stay alive till 25.
Favorite Gunter Steiner follow-up memoir.
In second place, RB's, the two letters. We have the meats.
Okay, they said.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And then in first place, Ham, H-A-M, all caps, and Ham On.
Ham and Ham On.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But overall, the podium looks like this. Seat for Signs in third place. Agreed. Obi Guanyu Jobi.
So good.
In second.
Never gets
old.
old.
And then in first place, by 1 point, Stroll Hats Up.
Stroll Hats Up?
Stroll Hats Up.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Well, you could also send us an email, shift+f1podcast@gmail.com or f1.co/emails. You could also hit us up on the socials. They are linked in the show notes. And that is us around the internet. Shall we take it around the world of racing?
Let's race around the world. Hey, 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 yeah.
The Craftsman trucks are at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in Concord, North Carolina for the North Carolina Education Lottery 200.
Let's teach those kids about how to get scratchers.
We've also got MotoGP is in Catalonia for the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya sprint and race.
Watch it on
That's
Max.
a fun one to watch. What'd you say?
They're on HBO Max now.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
MotoGP is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As is WEC.
Wow. Move over, Game
I didn't
of
know that.
Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
That's a fun one.
unsearchable.
If you've not watched MotoGP, I think that a good way to do it is to go watch them race on an F1 track you already know. I think that's a fun way to do it because you immediately understand the different way that the bikes need to be driven. Also, it's weird because they use different camera angles a lot of the time.
Formula E is at the Shanghai Audi International Circuit.
Did Audi buy the Shanghai?
I think it's a different circuit.
Oh,
But I could
okay.
be wrong. For the Shanghai E-Prix.
Oh yeah, they're not racing at the one that's fucking out in the middle of a swamp. It's E3. They got to race in the
E-Prix.
cities.
It's got to be in the city. F2 and F3 and I believe Porsche Super Cup will be joining in Monaco this weekend. DTM is here.
Oh, finally!
Ja, sehr at
Been waiting.
Shipcow. It's a Rausitsring.
Shipcow.
Shipcow.
I'm speechless. I have nothing to say about Shipcow.
It's a bovine who is on a boat. It's a
Scared of
Rausitsring.
flying.
Yep.
Lausesring.
Yep.
It's my favorite ring.
We also have the NASCAR Xfinity Series, also at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Bet MGM 300.
Yep. Once you've grown up and you realize scratchers won't get you rich, then you start betting MGM. That's
Right.
Yeah.
Bet on the next James Bond movie. The 108th Indianapolis 500 is this weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at Speedway, Indiana, USA.
You can tell because they did like 1 million days of practice last weekend.
That's right. Apparently, Marcus Ericsson, winner last year, almost got bumped in qualifying through
wow.
some screw up that he did.
Oh, no.
I didn't read the article, but he owned up to messing up and almost getting disqualified.
I think that's my favorite thing about Indy is that the Indy 500 is that they do that. That it's like it like feels like the World Cup or something because there's like
It's the month away, baby.
yeah, it's so good. Like it's such a it puts so much like extra emphasis on that race. It's very very cool.
I was in an airport, and at the sports bars, they were showing Indy 500 qualifying, and it made my racer's heart warm.
Well, Indy qualifying is really cool. I love the whole like you set the average across the laps, so
Yeah.
there's a bit more like, can you try and get back that lost speed on your next two laps? You had a bad first one. MK had a weird. She was out with her mom for a brunch at a restaurant around here, but this is her place that specializes in like, go on, have brunch with your parents.
Yeah.
F1 race was on the TVs in that place.
Wow.
What?
Yep.
Incredible.
America, man. The F1 takeover is
It's real.
here. Yeah.
We also got NASCAR.
Yeehaw.
Also at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the
Payday
Coca-Cola.
loans.
Coca-Cola 600.
Nothing more American.
Certainly. We got that. We got the Indy 500, and we got Monaco. It truly is
Yeah.
a race weekend for the ages. Formula One in Monaco kicks off Friday, May 24th. Free Practice 1 at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2, followed by Free Practice 2 at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. Saturday, May 25th, Free Practice 3 is 6:30 a.m. on ESPN2, followed by qualifying at 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. It's nice and watchable for us over here on the West Coast. And then Sunday, May 26th, the race is at 9 a.m. Eastern on ABC. Over the airwaves.
Easy as 1, 2, 3. On the podium. There you go. Segway.
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 2.
The guy who invented the Segway died riding a Segway.
Danny, final thoughts.
Has there ever been Segway races? I feel
Almost certainly.
Yeah, there must.
And we got
have been.
those scooters, right?
What scooters? Just
Scooters. Just scooter racing.
Scooter racing? Oh God, I totally forgot about that thing.
Yeah.
Where they're like hardcore, super speedy scooter racing, where they all wear helmets and they look like baddies from Power Rangers or something. That sounds great. We never follow up on any of these. We never follow up on the weird scooters.
Well, no, we do. They launch and then we forget about them because
they're bad. Is it? Or the sailing one?
Yeah,
remember
Sail GP.
Sail GP. Is it still going? Oh, it is. We did a whole thing on Sail GP. We did a whole Patreon podcast on it. You should check that out.
The e-scooter championship.
That's it.
On their website, they have the 2022 winner.
Who was it?
Amard Vernay.
Amard Vernay. Amazing.
Yes. They had the 2024/25 season preview, so
check it out.
They're still going.
I feel bad for them. They don't have that much space to put, all the vape sponsors they have. They got to put them on their on their helmet, I guess. The scooters are too small. Can't see much on them.
It appears there was not a 2023 season.
It's a contention. Yeah. Oh yeah. They had to cancel it because it was too awesome.
Final thoughts, Rob.
I think I've turned all the way around on Monaco in some ways, as we alluded to earlier, where it was like, for years I was like, I wish we could just kill it, just kill Monaco. It's such a bad F1 track. It doesn't fit the modern cars. It's terrible. And now I'm like, a tradition like no other. That's me. That's me on Monaco race weekend.
We might just be getting old because we also said, let's just let them use gasoline. It's fine. Maybe we're just becoming old conservative men. Maybe that's maybe I'll start being like, I don't know, maybe the nuclear family, traditional families are important. I don't, who knows what the future, what weird brain wrongs my brain is going to come up with.
Should we reveal what our last eBay searches were?
Oh, is that a thing? Is that like a thing
know.
you do? Oh, you're right. Yeah. Weren't you looking? What were you looking up before we did this, Rob? He's crashed. He's had the shame has crashed him.
I just don't want to tell people that I was looking up vintage Matchbox cars.
Love it.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. If you'd like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes, the ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift+F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.
Meow.